Young Marines doubted the old man's war stories until he showed them his Purple Heart. The VA hospital in Oceanside, California sits 3 miles from Camp Pendleton. On any given afternoon, you can find them in the courtyard, old men in wheelchairs and younger men on crutches, separated by decades but connected by the same oath. The space between the rehabilitation wing and the psychiatric building has benches, a few palm trees, and a view of the Pacific if you crane your neck just right. It's where Robert Bobby Morales spends most afternoons. 81 years old, liver spots on his hands, hearing aids in both ears, a cane with a rubber tip that squeaks on the linoleum when he walks. He wears the same outfit most days, khaki shorts, a faded Hawaiian shirt, white tube socks pulled up to his knees. The nurses know him. The orderlies wave when they pass. He's been coming here twice a week for physical therapy since his hip replacement 2 years ago. Stays afterward for the company. Bobby likes to talk. Not about the weather, not about sports, about Vietnam, always Vietnam. He sits on the same bench, second one from the east entrance, and whenever someone walks by in uniform, Bobby starts in. "You a Marine, son?" Most of them stop, courtesy if nothing else. "Yes, sir." "What unit?" "1st Battalion, 5th Marines, sir." Bobby's face lights up. 5th Marines, good outfit. I was with them. 68 to 69, Hugh City. Ever heard of it? They always have. Hugh was legend in the Corps, worst urban combat of the Vietnam War, house-to-house fighting, 200 Marines against 10,000 NVA regulars, 27 days of hell. "Yes, sir, Battle of Hugh City. I've read about it." And then Bobby's off, talking, describing streets and buildings and moments that feel too vivid, too detailed, too much. "We cleared the Citadel building by building. NVA had machine guns in every window. We're talking stone walls 3 feet thick, French colonial construction. Couldn't blow through them with grenades, had to use satchel charges. My squad leader, Rodriguez, he goes through a doorway and catches a burst from an AK. Hits him in the chest, spins him around. I'm right behind him." The young Marines listen at first, polite, interested even, but Bobby doesn't stop. He keeps going. More stories, more details, more moments stacked on top of each other until it starts to feel like too much. Another time, we're in this pagoda, beautiful place, all carved dragons and gold leaf, and the NVA are using it as a mortar position. So we call in artillery. I'm talking danger close. Shells landing 50 meters out. The concussion blows out my eardrums, blood coming out both ears. But we take the position. The young Marine checks his watch. And there was this one firefight near the Perfume River, February 12th, 1968. I remember because it was Lincoln's birthday. We lose radio contact with 2nd Platoon. Lieutenant sends me and 3 other guys to find them. We're moving through rubble, bodies everywhere. Civilians, NVA, our guys, and suddenly... "Sir," the Marine interrupts gently, "I actually need to get to formation." Bobby blinks. "Oh, right, of course. But thank you for your service, sir. Semper Fi, son." The young Marine walks away. Not quite fast enough to be rude, but not slow either. Bobby sits alone again. This happens 2 or 3 times a week. Different Marines, same conversations, same reaction eventually. Today, a group of 5 Lance Corporals from 2nd Battalion are cutting through the courtyard, shortcut from the parking lot to the main gate. Young men, 19 to 22 years old, fresh haircuts, Marpat utilities still crisp. Bobby sees them coming. "Hey there, Marines." They slow down, can't ignore a greeting from an old-timer, even if they're in a hurry. "Afternoon, sir," the tallest one says. His name tape reads Kowalski. "You boys coming or going?" "Heading back to base, sir. Got Liberty this weekend." "Liberty, that's good. You earned it." Bobby leans forward on his cane. "What unit?" 2-5, sir. 5th Marines, my old regiment." Bobby's eyes brighten. "I was with them in Vietnam, Hugh City, 68. You know about Hugh?" The Marines exchange glances, quick, almost imperceptible, the kind of look that says, "Oh boy, here we go." "Yes, sir," Kowalski says. "We've heard about it. Worst urban combat since World War II, Bobby says. 27 days of house-to-house fighting. I was there for 19 of them. Corporal, 1st Squad, Alpha Company." Another Marine, Chen, according to his name tape, nods politely. That's incredible, sir. We lost 83 Marines taking that city, Bobby continues. Another 396 wounded. The NVA had us outnumbered 20-1, but we didn't quit. You know why? Because Marines don't quit, sir, says a third Lance Corporal. Martinez. Damn right! Bobby shifts his weight on the cane. I remember this one time. Had to be the third week. We're clearing the Imperial Palace. Beautiful place. Ancient. And there's this NVA sniper in the tower. Picks off 2 of our guys before we even know where he's shooting from. So Sergeant Willis, he tells me to take Johnson and flank around to the east wall. The Marines stand there, shifting weight, glancing at each other. Bobby keeps talking. The story expands. More details, more names, more tactical movements that sound like they came from a manual. After 5 minutes, Kowalski interrupts. Sir, we really need to get going. Formation in 20 minutes. Right, of course. Bobby waves them on. Semper Fi, boys. Semper Fi, sir. They walk away. Once they're out of earshot, Chen mutters, Does that guy ever stop talking? Martinez shrugs. Every old vet's got stories, man. Yeah, but some of those details... Kowalski lowers his voice. I don't know. My uncle was in Hugh. He never talks about it, like, ever. And this dude's out here giving play-by-play like it's a football game. Maybe. He's embellishing, Chen says. Maybe he's full of shit, Martinez adds. Kowalski doesn't disagree. I mean, I'm not saying he didn't serve, but every time we see him, it's another story. And they're all, I don't know, too much. They keep walking. Behind them, Bobby sits on his bench, alone again, the afternoon sun warm on his face. He watches them go and understands exactly what they're thinking. He's heard the whispers before, seen the looks. The old man who talks too much, the veteran whose stories are too vivid to be trusted, the guy who's probably mixing up movies with memories. Bobby doesn't blame them. He's 81 years old, wears shorts and tube socks, needs a cane to walk, doesn't look like a warrior, and his stories do sound impossible, because the truth is, impossible things happened. But how do you prove that to someone who wasn't there? 3 weeks later, the same 5 Lance Corporals are back at the VA, not for Bobby, for a mandatory class on PTSD awareness, part of their pre-deployment training. The battalion's headed to Okinawa in 2 months, and the Corps wants them to understand what combat stress looks like. The class is in Building 4, Conference Room B. They arrive 15 minutes early, grab coffee from the break room, and wait. That's when they see Bobby. He's in the hallway, moving slowly with his cane, talking to a nurse. She's helping him find the elevator. His physical therapy is on the 2nd floor. That's the old guy, Chen whispers, the one from the courtyard. Wonder if he's got a new story today, Martinez says, grinning. Kowalski doesn't smile. Come on, man, don't be a dick. I'm not being a dick. I'm just saying... Bobby notices them. His face lights up. Hey, 5th Marines, good to see you boys again. They have no choice but to acknowledge him. Afternoon, sir, Kowalski says. You here for the class? Bobby asks. Yes, sir. PTSD awareness brief. Bobby nods slowly. Good class, important. He pauses. You know, after Hugh, half my platoon ended up with what they used to call combat fatigue. Nowadays, you'd call it PTSD. We didn't have names for it back then. You just dealt with it. Here we go, Martinez's expression says. But before Bobby can launch into another story, the nurse touches his arm. Mr. Morales, we need to get you upstairs. Your appointment's in 5 minutes. Right. Bobby nods to the Marines. You boys pay attention in there. Mental wounds are just as real as the physical ones. Will do, sir. Bobby shuffles toward the elevator. The Marines watch him go. Mental wounds? Chen repeats quietly. Maybe that's his problem. What do you mean? Kowalski asks. I mean, maybe all those stories are how he processes things. Maybe he's been telling them so long he can't separate what really happened from what he wished happened. Martinez considers this. That's actually kinda sad. Yeah, Kowalski agrees. It is. They head into the conference room. 20 other Marines are already seated. The instructor, a Navy psychologist, Commander Phelps, stands at the front with a PowerPoint ready. The class covers the basics. What PTSD is, how to recognize it in yourself and others, the importance of seeking help, statistics about suicide rates among veterans. Phelps clicks to a slide showing a photograph. Black and white. Marines in dirty uniforms, 1,000-yard stares, sitting in rubble. This was taken in Hughes City, February 1968, Phelps says. One of the most intense urban battles in Marine Corps history. Many of the men in this photo were teenagers, 18, 19 years old, and they saw things no teenager should ever see. Kowalski leans forward, studies the photo. Young faces, exhausted, some of them staring at the camera, some staring at nothing. The psychological impact of Hugh was profound, Phelps continues. Many veterans of that battle struggled for decades with what they experienced. Some still do. She clicks to the next slide. It's a quote. "We didn't have counseling. We didn't have therapy. We just had each other. And sometimes we had our stories. We told them over and over, because that was the only way to make sense of what happened, the only way to keep our brothers alive." The quote is attributed to Robert Morales, USMC, Ritter Sixtas, Hughes City veteran. Kowalski sits up straight. "Wait, that's the guy from the Courtyard," Chen finishes. Martinez stares at the screen. Phelps continues. "Mr. Morales is actually a patient here at this facility. He's given several talks to Marine units about his experiences. I asked if he'd be willing to speak to you all today, but unfortunately, he has a physical therapy appointment he couldn't reschedule." She pauses. "But I want you to understand something. When you encounter veterans, especially Vietnam veterans, who seem to tell the same stories repeatedly, understand that it's not about embellishment, it's about processing. It's about keeping memory alive when everyone else has moved on." Kowalski feels something twist in his chest. Guilt, maybe, or shame. After the class, the five of them walk out in silence. "We were kind of assholes," Martinez says finally. "Yeah," Chen agrees. "We were." Kowalski stops walking. "I'm going to find him." "What?" "Mr. Morales, I'm going to find him and apologize. Dude, his PT appointment is probably over by now. He's probably gone home. Then I'll come back tomorrow." But as they cross the courtyard, they see him. Bobby's on his usual bench. Physical therapy must have ended early. He's sitting alone, looking out at nothing in particular. Kowalski walks over, the others follow. "Mr. Morales?" Bobby looks up. "Oh, hey there. How was the class?" "It was good, sir. Really informative." Kowalski hesitates. "Sir, I wanted to apologize. We haven't been as respectful as we should have been when you've tried to tell us about your service." Bobby waves a hand. "Don't worry about it, son. I know I talk too much." "No, sir, you don't talk too much. We didn't understand." Bobby studies them for a moment. These young faces, so certain of themselves, so sure they know what war is because they've trained for it. He remembers being that young, that confident. "You boys got a few minutes?" Bobby asks. They nod. "Sit down." They do, all five of them, squeezing onto the bench and the low wall beside it. Bobby is quiet for a long moment. When he speaks, his voice is different, softer, less performative. "I tell those stories because if I don't, they disappear. And if they disappear, the men I served with disappear with them." He looks at his hands. Rodriguez, Willis, Johnson, Hernandez, Thompson, all of them gone now. Most of them didn't make it past 30 years old. The Marines sit still. "I'm not trying to impress anyone," Bobby continues. "I'm not trying to prove I'm some kind of hero. I'm just trying to keep them alive, in here." He taps his temple. "Because once I'm gone, who's going to remember them?" "Sir," Kowalski says carefully. "In the class, they showed a quote from you about telling stories to process what happened." Bobby nods. "Commander Phelps, good woman. She's helped me a lot over the years." "So the stories, they're all true?" Bobby looks at him, really looks at him. Every word, even the ones that sound impossible. Chen shifts uncomfortably. "Sir, I don't mean any disrespect, but some of the details you mention, they're so specific. It's just hard to believe someone could remember all that after 50 years. "You're right," Bobby says. "It is hard to believe. But you know what's harder? Forgetting." He reaches into his pocket, pulls out a small leather wallet, old, cracked, held together with a rubber band. He removes the rubber band carefully and opens the wallet. Inside, there are no credit cards, no driver's license, no money, just photographs, small, faded, creased from being handled too many times. Bobby pulls one out, black and white, a group of Marines in front of a shot-up building. That's Alpha Company, February 1968. That's me in the back row, third from the left. He passes it to Kowalski. The Lance Corporal studies it. A young Bobby Morales, 19 years old maybe, rifle in hand, looking at the camera with an expression that's hard to read. That's Rodriguez next to me. He died 4 days after that photo was taken. Bobby pulls out another photo. More rubble, more tired faces. That's the Citadel. You can see the walls we were talking about. 3 feet of stone. Another photo. That's the pagoda I mentioned. See the gold leaf on the dragons? Another. That's the Perfume River. We crossed it under fire on February 12th, Lincoln's birthday. He keeps pulling out photos, 10 of them, 15, each one a piece of the stories he's been telling. The Marines pass them around, silent now. Every location Bobby described, every tactical detail, every moment that seemed too vivid to be real, there it is, frozen and faded, black and white. I don't remember everything, Bobby says quietly. A lot of it's gone. But what I do remember, I remember exactly. Because when you see your friends die, you don't forget the details. You don't forget the sounds or the smells or the way the light looked. He pulls out one more photograph. This one is different, not a combat photo. Just Bobby, standing alone in front of a building, holding something in his hand. That was taken 3 months later, May 1968, day I got my Purple Heart. Martinez leans forward. Purple Heart, sir? Bobby nods. Shrapnel wound. Rocket hit the building we were in. Took out half my squad. I caught a piece of it in my side. He carefully puts the photos back in the wallet, all except the last one. You boys ever seen a Purple Heart up close? Bobby asks. They shake their heads. Want to? Bobby lives 3 miles from the VA hospital. The Marines offer to drive him, but he waves them off. I've got my car. You can follow if you want. They do. 5 Lance Corporals in a beat-up Camry, trailing a 1997 Honda Civic with a faded Semper Fi bumper sticker. Bobby's apartment is in a complex that's seen better days. Stucco walls, cracked parking lot. But it's clean, maintained. Palm trees swaying in the ocean breeze. Unit 2C, 2nd floor. Bobby climbs the stairs slowly. The Marines stay a respectful distance behind, in case he needs help. He doesn't ask for it. Inside, the apartment is exactly what you'd expect. Small, tidy, a veteran's space, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, a living room that doubles as everything else. The furniture is old but cared for. The carpet shows traffic patterns but no stains. Everything has its place, but it's the walls that stop them. Photographs everywhere, dozens of them, maybe 100. All in mismatched frames, covering nearly every inch of available space. Vietnam. All of it Vietnam. Young Marines in muddy uniforms, burned-out buildings, tanks in narrow streets, faces that look too young to be carrying rifles. And in the center of one wall, in a simple black frame, the Purple Heart. The medal itself, bronze heart with a purple ribbon. Next to it, the citation, the formal military language describing the action. For wounds received in action against an enemy of the United States while serving with Alpha Company, 1st Battalion, 5th Marines. The date, May 7th, 1968. The location, Hue City, Republic of Vietnam. Bobby sets his cane against the wall and stands in front of the frame. The Marines gather around. I was helping evacuate wounded, Bobby says. Corpsman got hit, couldn't move, so I went out to get him. NVA were firing from 2 positions. 1 high, 1 low, crossfire, smart tactics. His voice is different now, not the eager storyteller from the Courtyard, quieter, more controlled. I got to him, started dragging him back, then the rocket hit. Bobby touches his side, almost unconsciously. Felt like getting hit with a baseball bat, knocked me down, couldn't breathe, for a minute. When I could, I kept pulling. Did you get him back, sir? Kowalski asks. Bobby nods. Yeah. Got him back. He lived, became a doctor, actually. Pediatrician in Oregon. We write Christmas cards. He turns away from the frame and gestures at the wall of photographs. Every face up there, I can tell you their name, where they were from, what they liked to do on liberty, what their last words were, if they had any. He points to one photo. That's Thompson, Kenny Thompson, from Nebraska, Wanted to be a teacher, took a sniper round in the throat on February 23rd, died in my arms. Another photo. That's Hernandez, Marcus Hernandez, Los Angeles, had a daughter he'd never met, stepped on a mine, March 1st. Another. Willis, Staff Sergeant Paul Willis. He was 34, old man of the platoon, told the best dirty jokes I've ever heard, died May 15th, 3 days after I got evac to the hospital ship. Bobby moves along the wall, touching each frame gently as he passes. Rodriguez, Carter, McKenzie, O'Brien, Jackson, Lee. Names like a roll call, like a prayer. The Marines stand frozen. This isn't the chatty old man from the Courtyard. This is something else, something raw. I tell the stories because nobody else will, Bobby says. Their families got a flag and a letter, but they don't know what their sons and husbands actually did. They don't know how brave they were, how scared, how young. He sits down heavily in a worn recliner, the leather cracked and shaped perfectly to his body. So, yeah, I talk too much. I know that. But if I don't talk, they vanish. And they've already vanished from everywhere else. The history books mention Hugh City in a paragraph. The news moved on 50 years ago. The country forgot we were even there. Bobby looks at them. His eyes are wet, but he's not crying. Just full. But I can't forget. I won't forget. So I sit in that courtyard and I wait for Marines to walk by, and I tell them. I tell them what it was like, what it cost, who paid. The silence in the room is complete. Martinez is the first to speak. Sir, I'm sorry. We thought. I know what you thought, Bobby says, and I don't blame you. I'm an old man in shorts who talks too much. That's what I look like. He pauses. But that's the thing about war. It doesn't look like anything after 50 years. It just looks like old men with stories. Chen steps closer to the wall, studies the photographs. How many of these men made it home? Bobby does the math in his head. Out of 42 men in my platoon, 12 came home. 3 of those 12 are still alive, including me. 12 out of 42. The ratio hangs in the air. Did any of them... Kowalski hesitates. Did any of them talk about it? Like you do? Bobby shakes his head. Most of them didn't, couldn't. Some tried to drink it away. Some ate their guns. Some just buried it and tried to pretend those 13 months never happened. Why didn't you? Martinez asks. Because Rodriguez asked me not to. Bobby stands up, walks to the center wall, points to a photo of a young Hispanic Marine with a wide smile. The day before he died, we're sitting in a crater, just taking a break, eating sea rats. And he says to me, Bobby, if something happens to me, you gotta promise me something. And I say, nothing's gonna happen. But he makes me promise anyway. Bobby's voice cracks slightly. He says, promise me you'll remember. Promise me you'll tell people. Don't let them forget we were here. So I promised. He touches the frame. And I kept that promise for 54 years. The Marines don't know what to say. There's nothing to say. Kowalski stands at attention. The others follow his lead. Sir, Kowalski says, we were wrong about everything, and we're sorry. Bobby waves a hand. You didn't know. We should have listened. You're listening now? Bobby moves to the small kitchen, pulls out a pitcher of iced tea from the refrigerator. You boys want something to drink? It's hot out. They accept. Grateful for something to do with their hands, Bobby pours 5 glasses. They sit, some on the couch, some on folding chairs Bobby pulls from a closet. They drink tea and look at the walls and try to process what they're feeling. After a while, Chen asks, Sir, what was the hardest part of Hugh? Bobby thinks for a long time. The hardest part was after, coming home and realizing nobody cared, the protests, the names people called us, being spit on in airports. He shakes his head. We did what our country asked us to do, and when we came home, our country hated us for it. That's not right, Martinez says. No, it wasn't, but that's what happened. Bobby sips his tea. I didn't wear my uniform in public for 20 years. Didn't tell people I was a veteran. Too much anger out there. When did that change? Kowalski asks. When I realized I was letting them win, the people who wanted us to be ashamed, the people who wanted us to disappear. Bobby sets down his glass. Rodriguez didn't die so I could be ashamed. None of them did. He stands up, walks back to the Purple Heart. So I started telling the stories, first at VFW halls, then at schools, then just wherever anyone would listen. He smiles slightly. even if they thought I was full of shit. The Marines laugh, quiet, respectful, but real. "Can I ask you something, sir?" Kowalski says. "Of course. The stories you tell in the courtyard, are they always the same ones?" Bobby nods. "Pretty much. Rodriguez, Willis, the Citadel, the Pagoda. I've got maybe 10 stories I cycle through, the ones that matter most." "Why those ones?" Bobby considers this. "Because those are the moments that change me. The moments when I understood what it meant to be a Marine, what it meant to sacrifice, what it meant to stand with your brothers when everything's falling apart." He looks at each of them in turn. "You're going to have your own moments, Okinawa, or wherever they send you, after, and you're going to come home with your own stories, and I really hope, that you find someone to tell them to." "We will, sir," Kowalski promises. "We'll tell them to each other." "Good, that's good." The sun is setting when the Marines finally leave Bobby's apartment. They shake his hand, thank him. Promise to visit again. Bobby walks them to the door. "You boys be careful out there. Okinawa's not a combat zone, but that doesn't mean it's safe. Stay sharp, look out for each other." "We will, sir. And when you get back, come find me. I want to hear your stories." They promise they will. As they drive back to base, nobody speaks for a long time. Finally, Chen breaks the silence. "I feel like shit." "Yeah," Martinez agrees. "Me too." Kowalski stares out the window. "We almost missed it. We almost just dismissed him. Wrote him off as some old dude telling war stories." "But we didn't," Chen says. "We listened, eventually." "Eventually isn't good enough," Kowalski says. "How many other Bobby Moraleses are out there? How many other veterans with stories that sound impossible but are actually true? And we just ignore them because they don't look like what we think heroes should look like?" Nobody has an answer. That night, Kowalski can't sleep. He lies in his rack and thinks about the photographs on Bobby's wall, about the names, about 12 out of 42. He thinks about what's waiting for him and his Marines in the next few years, deployments, combat maybe, moments that will define them. And he thinks about coming home and trying to explain it to people who weren't there. The next morning, Kowalski goes to his platoon sergeant. "Sergeant, I want to request something." "What is it, Kowalski?" "There's a Vietnam veteran at the VA, Robert Morales. He was at Hughes City. I'd like to invite him to speak to our platoon before we deploy." The platoon sergeant raises an eyebrow. "You want to bring in an outside speaker?" "Yes, Sergeant. I think the platoon needs to hear from him." "Why?" Kowalski chooses his words carefully. "Because he knows what it's like to carry something heavy for a long time. And I think we need to understand that before we go." The platoon sergeant studies him. "Set it up." 2 weeks later, Bobby Morales stands in front of 40 Marines in a classroom at Camp Pendleton. He's wearing his dress blues. They're a little tight. He's shrunk with age, but they're clean and pressed. The Purple Heart is on his chest. So is the Combat Action Ribbon. The Presidential Unit Citation. 3 rows of ribbons that tell a story all their own. He doesn't use notes, doesn't need them. He tells them about Hughes City, not the sanitized version, the real one. He tells them about fear, about watching friends die, about making impossible choices with incomplete information. He tells them about the weight of survival, about coming home when others didn't, about the guilt that never quite goes away. He tells them about the importance of brotherhood, about how the Marine next to you is the only thing that matters when everything else is chaos. And he tells them about memory, about the responsibility of remembering, about keeping the fallen alive through stories. When he finishes, there's not a sound in the room. Then, as 140 Marines stand and applaud, Bobby stands there, surprised, overwhelmed. For a moment, he's 19 again, standing in formation, surrounded by brothers who would die for him. After the talk, Marines line up to shake his hand, to thank him, to ask questions. Kowalski waits until the end. When everyone else has left, he approaches Bobby. "Thank you, sir, for doing this." Bobby smiles. "Thank you for asking." "Sir, I wanted you to know, we're going to remember this, what you told us, and when we have our own stories, we're going to tell them. The right way." Bobby puts a hand on his shoulder. "That's all any of us can do, son. Bear witness, keep faith, remember." They shake hands. Then Bobby does something unexpected. He salutes. Kowalski, caught off guard, snaps to attention and returns it. "Semper Fi, Lance Corporal." Semper Fi, sir. 6 months later, Kowalski's platoon is in Okinawa, no combat, just training exercises and port visits. But one night, during field ops, they're sitting in a bivouac eating MREs, and one of the junior Marines asks, "Hey Kowalski, what was that story the old guy told about Hugh City?" Kowalski sets down his food. "Which story?" "The one about his friend Rodriguez." So Kowalski tells it, not word for word. He wasn't there. It's not his story to tell exactly. But he tells what he remembers, what Bobby shared. The other Marines listen. When he finishes, another Marine asks about Willis, then Thompson, then Hernandez. Kowalski tells those stories too, the ones Bobby entrusted to him. And in that moment, sitting in the dirt thousands of miles from home, Bobby Morales' promise to Rodriguez lives on. Back in Oceanside, Bobby still goes to the VA twice a week, still sits on his bench in the courtyard, still talks to young Marines when they pass. But something's different now. Word spread about the talk he gave, about the photographs, about the Purple Heart. Now when Marines see him, they don't hurry past. They stop. They introduce themselves. They ask to hear the stories. And Bobby tells them. Every time, like it's the first time. Because for the listener, it is. One afternoon, a full year after that first conversation with Kowalski and his friends, Bobby's sitting on his bench when he sees a familiar face. Kowalski. Lance Corporal no more. He's got corporal chevrons now, walking across the courtyard with purpose. "Mr. Morales!" Bobby stands, leaning on his cane. "Corporal Kowalski, good to see you, son." They shake hands. "How was Okinawa?" Bobby asks. "Good, sir. Learned a lot. Came back safe." "That's what matters." Kowalski reaches into his pocket, pulls out a small notebook, worn, dog-eared. "Sir, I wanted to show you something." He opens it. Inside, written in careful handwriting, names, dates, stories. Rodriguez, Willis, Thompson, Hernandez, all the stories Bobby told, all the names he wanted remembered. "I wrote them down," Kowalski says. "Everything you told us, so I wouldn't forget, so I could tell them to my Marines." Bobby stares at the notebook. His eyes fill with tears. "And I wanted to ask your permission to keep doing that, to keep telling these stories, your stories." Bobby can't speak for a moment. He just nods. "Thank you," he finally manages. "Thank you for remembering them." "It's what Marines do, sir. We don't leave anyone behind." Bobby pulls him into a hug. This old man and this young corporal standing in a VA courtyard on a sunny California afternoon. When they separate, Bobby says, "Rodriguez would have liked you." "I wish I could have met him, sir." "In a way you have. Every time you tell his story, he's there." Kowalski nods. "Yes, sir, I know." Robert Morales passed away in his sleep on November 10th, 2021, the Marine Corps' birthday. He was 83 years old. His funeral was at Fort Rosecrans National Cemetery in San Diego. Full military honors, the rifle salute. Taps played as the sun set over the Pacific. More than 200 Marines attended, active duty, retired, young, and old. Kowalski was there. So were Chen, Martinez, and the others from that first conversation in the courtyard. They wore their dress blues. They rendered their sharpest salutes. When it came time for eulogies, Kowalski stepped forward. He told the story of Rodriguez, of Willis, of Thompson and Hernandez, and all the others. He told about a 19-year-old Marine who made a promise to his dying friend and kept it for 54 years. He told about an 81-year-old man in shorts and tube socks who refused to let history forget. And he made a promise of his own, that as long as there were Marines who knew these stories, Bobby Morales and his brothers would never truly die. Bobby's apartment was cleaned out by his daughter. Most things were donated or discarded, but the photographs, all 100 of them, were carefully packed and delivered to the Marine Corps Museum in Quantico. They hang there now, in a special exhibit called Brothers Remembered, Hugh City, 1968. Beneath the Purple Heart and the faded photographs, a plaque reads, "These are the faces of courage, remembered not in marble or bronze, but in the stories we tell and the faith we keep. Semper Fidelis." Every year on February 21st, the day the Battle of Hughes City officially ended, Marines gather at that exhibit. They stand in front of those photographs. They read the names, they remember. And somewhere, in the space between memory and eternity, Bobby Morales sits with Rodriguez and Willis and Thompson and all the others. And finally, He doesn't have to tell the stories anymore, because the stories tell themselves. Maybe that's what honor really means. Not the medals or the ceremonies or the monuments, but the willingness to remember, to bear witness, to carry the names of the fallen forward into a future they never got to see. History forgets the noise. It remembers the silence that followed. End